Allison, we're joined by our friends on Instagram. Hey guys, what's up? Okay,
You guys are so cute.
Okay, and now here we are with Instagram. Hey, happy Wine and Wedding Wednesday, you guys.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you guys hear us?
Okay.
Cheers.
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 And for those of you guys at home, thank you so much for joining us today for this Wine and Wedding Wednesday about a topic that's very near and dear to our hearts here. The wedding industry, how to really be sensitive to those who identify as LGBTQIA+, and how to book more clients that are, and really just how to be more inclusive. We're really excited about this. Obviously, it's something that Chris and I feel very strongly about, and we are joined by our good friends and former clients of the Bride Candy, actually, Tristan and Krystle from Miami. So Tristan, Krystle, thanks so much for being with us today.
I think
For sure. So first, before we do anything else, I think that the most important thing that we just need to get out of the way is what are you drinking tonight?
nice crisp Sauvignon Blanc from wine 10 bottles, and we've enjoyed every single one of them.
Nice.
Nice.
Sweet. Well, cheers to you.
Cheers.
Yep. We are drinking, let's see, this is Porta Reserva 2019 Carmenere from Chile. I was not anticipating this bottle. It's actually my birthday on Sunday, and my brother shipped me like a full case of wine.
Yeah.
It appeared by complete surprise on my doorstep yesterday.
It's a lot of wine.
It is. But we're having a lot of fun drinking our way through it. So
It's like a competition, you know?
Right? So I guess first and foremost, for the people who are joining us, before we go too much further down the road, today obviously the conversation revolves around LGBTQ plus. So I think we have to just sort of start there, right? What is LGBTQ and what is plus? What does it even mean? So I can start on this one. To me, basically what we're talking about in the context of the wedding industry are people that do not identify with sort of like this straight, cisgender, heteronormative wedding narrative, right? We're not talking about Carrie and Mr. Big here. We're talking about sort of some other storylines that may have gone on. And, I think one of the things that wedding vendors kind of make a mistake sometimes is just automatically assuming that people necessarily want to follow these narratives that, we all hear so much about and see so much about in the movies. Even if somebody looks like they're presenting as, say, a traditional bride and groom does not necessarily mean that those people identify that way. So really this conversation to me is being a little bit more sensitive about, who are the individuals that you're working with? And in particular, especially if they're not, if they don't follow sort of this path that we all know so well. So that's what the discussion is really around today. Do you guys have anything to add?
It's a good discussion to have. For us, I did feel like a lot there was a bride and groom, when I guess for us either one of those work, right? Like full, and it's there's a lot of people on the spectrum, and it can be kind of complex, how to tell you something to that situation.
Yeah, I key point is just obvious. One might assume I'm femme, I'm going to be in a dress, she might be food, and those gender that you assign that falls into those names. you know, they don't know what to call you, and so I think, you know, assumptions don't really by its cover. Are there certain you prefer to go by? Have you decided what technology works for you? And asking those questions and understanding how that should communicate. There's a lot that goes in. Is it Mrs. and Miss, Mix and Mrs.? How do you label things like that? That I think you've got to be same partnerships where with
Or with
otherwise pay attention to those.
Yeah, with the whole like you said, plus, right? And you're surprised how much under the plus.
Well, I mean, we actually had this conversation before about, like, you know, do you consider yourself a bride? Do you consider yourself a groom? And like in our case, I remember, Krystle, you said that you never really consider yourself, not that you consider yourself a male, but you never really consider yourself like a bride, you know, like you never felt like you were like a bride groom, or like you just felt like, you know what, groom is what fits me. I feel the same way. Like I mean, I don't identify as a female, but I do, like, if someone says, you know, we actually, when we booked our venue, it was bride and groom, and we had a good laugh about it. And he's like, well, he's clearly the bride, and I have no issue with that. I am, you know, it is in my name. I am the bride candy. You know, I call my bridal party my bridesmaids. They're not necessarily bridesmaids either. I mean, I have, you know, a male in there, and he, you know, whatever. Do I consider myself not a groom? Not necessarily. Like, it's, I guess, if I want to be specific, it would be maybe bride and groom. But to be honest, I guess, you know, I know that there's a bride in me for sure. So bride, I think, would fit me the most. But I'm also not like the same as other people, right? Like, you know, there are, you know, a same love couple. There are two females that might want to be two brides, you know. There might be two grooms that are, you know, consider themselves two grooms. But I mean, I guess the overall, like, learning part of it for a vendor is knowing that not to assume, and also getting to know your couples enough to distinguish that. Because you know, in the beginning, like, what the conversation we had was, at first you weren't sure. Like, you know, it's almost like even when people are requesting, like, you know, like a proposal from me, like sometimes their wedding style is not exactly, you know, because it's the first time that they're getting married. It's almost the same thing, like with these. But I think the tough part is what kind of role do you want to play, right? But the truth of the matter is that we don't have to play a role. There doesn't have to be really a bride and a groom. There's, you know, two people in love that are getting married, and that's the important part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The woman, I'd known her my whole life. Like, we've always been really good friends, and she told me one of her favorite was that I had a bridal bouquet, but I also had a bouquet, and she thought that was really interesting, you know, my bridal bouquet and my bouquet. Look at Krystle leaving her out herself, and because when we first started talking about myself, like, I didn't know what would make me feel. I had a wedding, part of it, and right, and checked all the boxes for me, but you know, you'd be surprised that a bridal bouquet and could make someone feel really great. Huh?
I think it also made a statement, and like, you know, I think with the bride candy, with my business, I think a lot of people think that it tailors to just, you know, a feminine bride, right? But in actuality, it's either, you know, it's bride or bridegroom, right? So when I thought of the bride candy, I really put that on count. But the slogan really is that there's a little bride in all of us, right? Like, even you could be the most, you know, masculine or feminine or whatever, but we all care about something about this wedding. That's what we're marrying this person. And whether it's entertainment, whether it's flowers, whether it's, you know, like, and venue, like, there's always like a little bride, right? Like, because it's not really so much about the word bride, but it's like the meaning of it. It's like, you know, we all have that moment of twirling around in a dress. It may not necessarily mean twirling around in a dress. It may be twirling around in a suit with a bouquet. Like, everyone's different, you know? Like, even with us, like, you know, we always kind of like thought I would be like the full-on bride. And there's moments where he's like, no, that is not what's
Don't
happening.
pretend like you haven't had your twirling around in a dress moment, because you definitely have.
I have that like every day. I have it every day. It doesn't count.
Oh my gosh.
So I guess tell us a little bit about your wedding, like just in general.
And for those of you at home, just for a little bit of background, this is a recent wedding. Tristan and Krystle
February 7th?
Right under the radar in February.
8th? 7th? 9th. Oh, I was so close. Dang. All right, sorry.
Okay.
Here, our wedding took place in Miami at a venue called it's very like outdoor garden, very green. I was going for a secret garden. First of all, the every Pinterest through, and just flowers made the wedding. They truly did.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a gorgeous wedding in the. I mean, it was magical. The whole space felt transformed, you know, with all of the decorations and the flowers, all the little touches from the. We had a great team. So just really, really beautiful. Like, midsummer night without being like floral. I know. Hopping our way through a garden, you know?
No, I know what you mean. Like you wanted to taste. Well, both you guys wanted something very tasteful, very beautiful, and it was. It had. I mean, it was very beautiful. I mean, I was lucky to experience your ceremony as well. So, like, you know, it was really, really nice and filled with lots of love.
Absolutely.
Yeah, reviewing the video, I feel like we got married 100 times that day because we couldn't figure out which oh, so we did everything, you know. Comments, the candle lighting, the Native American blanket, vows. I'm pretty sure like there was like secrets there. There was a whole thing. So
I guess it like starts. That's a good interlude to like one of our questions.
Before we continue, I'm getting some reports that your audio is a little bit jumpy. So are you on Wi-Fi right now?
yeah.
Okay, maybe go off of Wi-Fi. I'm not sure. Yeah, actually, I think so.
Are we getting?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It kind of just went out a little bit right there.
Sure
But
it's just me, the audio. Yeah.
yeah, but if we keep having problems, Tristan, maybe we can bounce over to your phone.
Yeah.
But you know, let's try it this way for now and see how it works. But I'm sorry I interrupted you. What was your question?
So, there's a lot of traditions with weddings that are connected to gender. What traditions did you decide to keep, and which did you decide you didn't want, and why?
So we kept I did a bouquet across my bouquet. Well, I kept mine. We did the garden. So Krystle, you know, took something a tradition because we liked it and it was fun.
Interestingly, I was thinking that we were gonna do the garter belt part, just kind of like all, and she happened to be wearing a garter belt, so in the moment it was awesome, but I didn't think I was like really scared of that.
Was it fun?
Not like a last wedding spread. Not, but no. When
I can think of a few other, you know, bride and groom, Mr. and Mrs.
whatever.
So instead, married. So that was kind of awesome. And
Yeah.
you know, they announced as for the first time, or so it was mixes and misses. So we
Yeah, on the cards, like Mrs. and Mrs. Krystle.
I did the
mix.
M.
You're like, I did the MS, MRS.
Yeah, gender neutral, but we did keep, I guess, our ceremony was just a little bit different. We just didn't go religious route, get married by three, or it wasn't a Catholic wedding, a spiritual wedding with a shaman, and somebody that I feel was super close to my life, and that really made it unique. That feeling of being a wedding, skipping on regular gender normative, but I did wear a suit.
It was a really
Yeah.
great suit,
Yeah,
actually.
My favorite was that you wore a suit, but then you also like had the bouquet, and I remember that was something that I was like, you're like, I'm thinking about having a bouquet, and I'm like, I am pro bouquet. Like I had a bouquet for my for our engagement, and I was like, this is the one thing I'm gonna do for myself, because it was more about him than me, like, because I was proposing to him. But I was like, I want a bouquet, and I did, and I said, screw it, like, and it's a little easier for me because I have bouquets in my hands all the time, and people see photos of me, so it's not so, abnormal to see me with a bouquet. But still, like, it was a statement. But I think that was one of my favorite parts, was when, like, you told me, you're like, I want a bouquet. This is what I want, and it looked very it looked beautiful, it looked effortless, and it didn't look out of place or anything like that. You looked very comfortable, and I think that's something that I love too, because I know that was something very important to you. And it made a statement. It made a statement of not, just because you consider yourself a bride or a bridegroom or a groom or whatever, it doesn't mean that you can have, a bouquet, or something can be different, because I think that that's something that's very important in the LGBTQ plus, community, is that not all of us are the same. And the important part is assumption, right? Like that, not all of us are, brides, grooms, bridegrooms. Some of us have Catholic ceremonies, some of us do not. Some of us are spiritual, different styles, different traditions. Like you guys, I know that you went a little bit more traditional with not seeing each other before the ceremony, versus, like a lot of gay men, they like to do, like, they get dressed together. Versus, like, for me and him, we're not. I'm a little bit more traditional. I'm like, you're not going to see me, and we're going to have a first look, which a first look is not totally traditional, but it's, it's a little bit like more traditional than maybe same couple that two men. A lot of them are a lot of us, which is also a very beautiful thing as well, right? Where you get to get dressed together, but it's not for everyone.
So I have to agree, right? Like, when you are, when not all the traditions apply to you, it's an invitation for you to write your own traditions, right? Like, you get to decide what you're going to do, what the path forward is. And you guys did that just beautifully at your wedding. I mean, you could tell that, it was full of a lot of thought about how you wanted it to flow. And in a lot of ways, that makes things really meaningful, right? Because you're not falling back on sort of a standard script anymore. You're really, like, making some really, well thought out choices about how you wanted this day to go. You guys, I'm sorry to tell you, but we are still getting some audio reports. So is it okay if we try and transfer over to another phone? I'm just going to go ahead and exit this out. So Tristan, when you do, I can go ahead and add you. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and, we'll tell you a little bit more about the wedding. So obviously the bride candy was the florist for this wedding. And one of the reasons why usually we don't see these weddings. But the nice thing about this is that
we were actually able to see it because we had to, like, switch the room over.
Yeah.
And one of the things that their guests let us know was that they saw me. Okay,
Hey.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Oh,
again.
yeah, that's better.
Yeah,
Is it better?
totally. Yeah,
Awesome.
no, it's perfect.
Oh, perfect.
Yay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah, like,
iPhone 6. You know that wedding was expensive, so couldn't get the last 5 or 6.
Like every other wedding, right?
So there, we were just telling the audience that we were lucky enough to actually be able to see your wedding. You usually, as a florist, we're not able to. You know, we set up and then, you know, we get out. But, you know, here we were hiding in the bushes next to the ceremony. And it really was a lovely, lovely moment. I know, just crying. Just crying.
That was me. I'm a crier. I'm a crier at weddings. And I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful.
It's true. It's true. So you know, one of the things that, you know, obviously for your wedding, you worked with a multitude of vendors to pull that off, and I know the venue was really fantastic. I mean, anybody who's been to Villa Woodbine knows, and they're super accepting. But you know, how was your experience with working with your wedding vendors? You know, what worked well and what didn't work so well for you guys as the same love couple?
So I would say, you know, it was always an interesting conversation. Anytime I would call a vendor, sometimes it was really difficult to see if a vendor was accepting or not. There were some vendors who would post on their website, like LGBTQ, whatever, they advertise it, or they clearly displayed same love couples pictures or weddings, so you can kind of already tell that they're comfortable. But it's always a really awkward, I felt, conversation at the beginning of like trying to announce that you are and get a feel for, are they going to be cool with that? Because these people are people you're going to be working really closely with over the next year. It's really, the fact that they jive with your vision, obviously us, I mean, you wouldn't want someone who isn't comfortable working with you. So typically when I would call vendors, I would say, my fiance and I, she, Krystle, you know, I would make sure to use certain pronouns so that they would understand. And that way, we actually did have an incident where a vendor turned us down as soon as they found out.
But what's interesting is that they were posted, they were listed on Wedding Wire and Not, which has a inclusivity policy and a non-discrimination policy for the vendors that are on their website. So in that case, we didn't know that these people, what was it, photographers? They were photographers, videographers. We didn't know that they were going to be anti-LGBT, like hardcore. And I'd actually not even considered it. I was moving through the whole process without even really mentioning any same-sex anything to anybody. I was just like, hey, I'm getting married, you know, and do you want my business? And it wasn't
How it should be.
Yeah.
They denied a service that I was like, whoa. And then we started mentioning it because we're like, we wanted to make sure everyone was on board. But definitely a disgraceful moment for that company. And ultimately, they did get kicked off just about everything. So their name's not even worth mentioning. Let's just put it like that.
No, but it was a difficult process to navigate in that, like I said, it's not always well advertised. So you're just really trying to get a feel for, is this vendor going to like jive with you? And so that's where, like I said, typically I would just kind of announce it from the beginning and gauge their reaction to me of how willing they were to work with me. A lot of vendors would say right away, like, oh my gosh, we've done same-sex weddings. Like, we absolutely, you know, they would make it known, and there were others that wouldn't. So I think that, you know, being inclusive is important. If you want people to feel comfortable with it, you've got to mention it. You've got to advertise it.
Give me
otherwise,
a
how are they
rainbow
gonna
flag
know?
on your website or something. Let me know that it's cool, so like I feel safe. You know,
we understand.
A lot of people want that.
We went through something similar. I think we had this conversation. You know, me being in the industry, I take for granted. I mean, when we got engaged, like I am, you know, like a lot of people that did the engagement with me, you know, it was, for those of you who don't know, we had a very over-the-top proposal, and it was like almost like a tiny wedding, right? So I knew everyone was accepting. We had been friends forever, et cetera, et cetera. But we went to some venue, and, you know, we went there before the owners arrived, and, you know, there was like a Mr. and Mrs. sign, and, you know.
But not a temporary one. Like
not
a
temporary,
one,
it was on the wall.
Like welded to the wall.
Welded to the wall. And so, like, my first thing is, like, you know, this is I'm sorry, for lack of better words, like tacky. I was like, oh, who does this, right? I'm like, if we get this venue, we'd have to cover it. And Jeremy's like, or they're not LGBTQ friendly, plus friendly. And I'm like, oh my God. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, I never said that Jeremy, I said that my name is Chris. And even Chris sometimes, like, can even maybe, because the way I sound on the phone is not always, like, some people think I'm a woman, and other people think I'm a man. To me it doesn't matter, but so like Chris sometimes be a woman as well. It could be Christina. And then we were, in a situation that was very uncomfortable, it was very weird, and they weren't mean, but they were clearly uncomfortable. And then it really dawned on me. And I think that's also what transpired, a blog that we wrote, which was almost the same subject. And also this conversation that we're having, not just our experience, but then your experience. And I think it's something that really needs to happen in the wedding industry. I do feel the wedding industry has gotten a way, way better with LGBTQ plus. We were represented more, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done as well.
So let's flip this on its head then. We were talking about sort of the things that were wrong and that made us feel bad. What about the opposite of that? Like, what were your experiences with vendors that went out of their way to be inclusive? What did that look like?
Well, we can start with bride candy. Seriously, we talked about it, but big role in the inclusivity, right? Like, flowers are a really sometimes feminine thing for a lot of people, and like we said, the bouquet is it's a very feminine thing, and so it was great being able to walk that line and have that relationship with Chris, where it felt like I said, I was checking all those boxes. I think those boxes were easier for Tristan to check, Yeah.
So Tristan found me. She was like, hey.
Take me. Take my money. No, definitely. Chris, I even remember reading your blog before I even contacted you the first time, and even you just having that post about LGBTQ inclusiveness and talking about it with vendors, it instantly put me at ease. Like I said, that conversation where typically when I call vendors and I say, hey, like my fiance, I knew I didn't have to worry about that, so you guys were a prime example of one where it was very clear. We felt included right from the moment, and everything from my bouquet to Krystle's bouquet to all the little, even putting flowers on the ring bear pillow, just those little unique touches that you guys worked so well with.
And definitely too,
even I would say our planner even was good about asking questions about things like, how do you want the DJ?
She was great, but there was a lot of bride, and I think I mentioned a lot that I wasn't a bride, and it didn't matter what I got from her, it said bride and bride. But what I was going to say before I forget is our photographers and our videographers surprisingly were really amazing too, because you'd be surprised how, like, when you're in the photography moments, you've got to be intimate with your partner. Doing that with somebody who you don't think looks at you like as a loving couple, like that would be super awkward. So
it's extremely intimate.
We're so lucky. Our photographer gave us a free engagement shoot, and we already had a great vibe from him, but that doubled it down. Like, we're gonna be able to work with this guy. He's gonna be able to capture our moments, and that was great to me. And our videographers were great too. So.
But it's also something to keep in mind that as LGBTQ plus, being in that community, it's not necessarily, I don't know, I don't want to use the wrong word, but it's it's sometimes uncomfortable for us to just be open, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like, I don't always hold my hand with Jeremy out in public, or if I feel safe and we're in that mood, then yes. And that just kind of what's the word I'm looking for? You kind of have to feel the same way with your photographer, right? Yeah. Like, you only hold hands with the person you love if you feel comfortable, if you feel safe. because you may not be safe wherever you are, right? Because it's not, at one point it wasn't legal to get married. People might not have taken it the wrong way. It was very awkward. So I think that with photography and videography, that it's very important that you feel comfortable. And it's amazing that you found like, people that really did make you feel comfortable, and you were able to be yourselves and just be happy on your wedding day. It's very important.
Yeah.
And to that point, I think that it's important to interview vendors and not just read reviews, because a lot of it is going to be personal style and how they fit with your vision and how you think they can execute on it. And not every couple's the same, so it's just trying to find that good fit. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's always about the personal relationship. I think that really is what, sort of, just to back away from the topic for a second, that's really what separates, good vendors from great vendors, are those vendors that actually go and give you that personal touch and really get invested in you as a couple and really become part of your story, right? So that they're not just there providing a service. They're actually literally part of your story and part of your day, and enrich your day by being there for you.
You can get flowers anywhere.
It's true.
Photographers a dime a dozen, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we had a goal, we had a vision in mind, and it was the people that were trying to nurture that vision, who were talking to us and who wanted to work with us. That's where there was value, right? That's where it's more than just a service. It's more than just flowers or photography. Now it's a memory, and a good memory.
Yeah. And you know what? It's surprising that even a few of those can really, even if there's negative stuff that happens, at the end of the day, you remember the good stuff way more than you're going to remember the bad stuff. It's a day that flies by, for sure.
Yeah.
You guys were saying it. What was it, Tristan, that you were saying to Chris? That's like, it's like you're a ghost at your own wedding, right?
yeah,
Like
floating through, and then
I feel like that about our engagement. It happened, and I had that moment of like, it was beauty and stuff. But everything else, like when he said yes, and luckily we had the vendors, right? That they were amazing, and they were accepting, and I felt comfortable, and but it is still like, a moment that's a little overwhelming sometimes at certain points, and then they do fly by. But yeah.
I see Mo and Co. Hi. Nice for you,
Hey,
of you
Mo.
guys to join us. She says, wedding planning is already stressful enough. It's a shame that you had that experience. It may be helpful to stalk their Instagram to see what kind of couples vendors they've worked with. It's a good point, Mo.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That is a really good.
yeah,
Good.
no, that's true.
To stalk their Instagram? Wait,
Yeah, to stalk
are
their
we all
Instagram.
stalking them?
Well, it could be mutual stalking, right?
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right.
Well, on that note.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. No, so let's, I guess, the reason why everybody's here and on this feed today, those who are watching, is, they want to know, what advice, we can give as same-love couples to wedding vendors on how to be more inclusive. And I think we've touched on a few of these things, right? Like, don't make assumptions, really get to know your clients, and listen, right? Ask and then shut up and listen about, who they are and what they want. Of course, then again, there's this whole issue with a lot of times when people approach you as a vendor, you don't necessarily know 100% of what you want. So, how can you give advice that's also not rooted in sort of these gender stories that we're so used to hearing, right? So those are some of the things that come to my mind. I don't know. Is there anything else that you would add?
No, I mean, I think it's just challenging. It's just a challenging subject. You're right. I didn't know what I wanted from the very beginning, but I think if I was just reminded, I know it's going to seem silly, but I think you just need to remind people that, it's okay for them to be themselves. And so I think you need to ask people, is this the genuine wedding that you want for yourself? How is this speaking to you as a couple? Are you comfortable with all of the, I guess, gender roles? If you know someone's an LGBT couple, I would just put it on the table, what kind of, I don't know. It's a really challenging conversation to have, but you know, maybe if it was even just like a statement of inclusivity, you know,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah. No.
give me something, a questionnaire, or I guess something to help me figure myself out. I know there's a lot of questionnaires.
I was thinking,
You know,
I don't know.
I hear you. You know, I wonder though, is if a questionnaire is almost in its way a little impersonal, right? You know,
it is. I will tell you, the questionnaires to me, I feel like they should have been a consultation, like a session, because you spend a lot of time putting stuff in writing, and then if you don't get a chance to talk through it, it's their interpretation of what you put down, and you need to have the conversation. It's just, I feel like you're doing the work for them and hoping that they can execute on whatever you put on a piece of paper, and it should be consultative.
Or maybe also giving people examples of stuff that you've done. Like, you know, if you guys come across like a non-gender binary individual, like they may want to see stuff from our wedding. And they just may want to know how we approached it and stuff like that. So, you know, yeah, it's a little challenging to provide guidance, I guess, when people don't even know what they want. And the challenge is the industry, because you were saying like, well, I feel like a bride. And I was saying, well, I feel like a groom. But in reality, there's a whole nother word that no one's come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel like, but there's just not a word for it.
Well, it's funny. We even saw, like, as we were searching for different things, like we saw there was a lesbian couple where the one girl like had her instead of groomsmen, they were bromaids, and just coming up with like, you know,
but I didn't feel like bromaids fit me. But looking at her and her bromaids, I could see how that fit her. You know what I mean?
But
Well, I think like.
Wait, sorry, pause. This is literally the first time I've ever heard the word bromaids before, and I really like it.
Bromaids.
Talk about bromaids.
I think
cool,
like
right?
I think the problem, it's not so much the wedding industry. I think it's the world, right? Like we're just obsessed with labels, right? It's like, you know, for me, like actually we had this conversation too, where it was like I've worn dresses in my life, but never like I'm abnormal, you know? And I've had, you know, people say, you know, oh my God, you guys are engaged. Like, so are you going to wear a dress? And I'm like, am I wearing a dress now? You know, and that was the conversation that we had also, that people were like obsessed with, you know, Krystle, you're going to wear a dress. And it's kind of like, well, does it matter what the expectations are? Like, it doesn't matter whether it's bride and groom. Why can't it be just soulmate and soulmate? Why can't it be just, you know, hey, like, you know, like what is your vision for your wedding? And if you don't exactly know, and just tell the person, like, listen. And honestly, beyond like LGBTQ plus community, there's no rules anymore. Like all my people, like I have clients that tell me like, I met my, you know, fiance on Bumble, or I met my fiance on what's the one that's like left the
Tinder.
That's where we
and they're like, I know it's weird. And I'm like, it's actually not weird. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Like I get so many couples like that, and it's just like, you know, an expectation of what love or what weddings are supposed to be like. And I think that as vendors, it's not so much of like, none of us are going to be perfect, right? Because, you know, not every couple is going to be the same. But it's about like not having so much expectation. You know, like when you guys hit me up at first, I wasn't sure, like, cause I've never met a Tristan I knew that Tristan was you know, man and female name, like it was a unisex name. But all the Tristans that I knew were male. And so when you like had asked me for a proposal, I was like, I think it's the groom, but I'm not really sure, because this, you know, Tristan's also a female name, but I've never met, you know, and I was like, huh. And then once we started talking, because for me, like, I don't really care, like, if you're a man or female or whatever.
Oh,
really, I just
no, he does. He loves it when the grooms reach out to him.
Oh, yeah. It like never happens. So it's like,
Exactly.
But like, it was just kind of like, oh, you told me, like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, yes, okay, that's awesome. And then it became like, Tristan, before I met Krystle, we had the conversation. I'm like, oh, well, is she going to have a suit? Is she going to have a dress? Does she want a bouquet? Does she not want a bouquet? And you're like, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And it's a little easier for me, right? Because I'm also not just part of the community. Because even people in our community can also be the same, right? Like, they expect the gender roles, like, the same thing with me. Like, I think I get a lot of same-love couples that are two women. I think that a lot of same-love couples that are men, they assume because I'm the bride candy that it's just, geared towards, women. And that's not the truth. But, like, I just lost the track.
Well, we've been saying same love a lot, and I want to give a quick shout out because we've been talking about a lot of things that we already know, but the fact is that there's stuff that we know innately just as being a member of the community, but there's also stuff that people teach you along the way, right? And I think that we're really lucky in that in our network in the wedding industry, we actually have a lot of really wonderful allies who are not members of the community, but definitely participants in the community and promoting the community and are real straight allies. And the same love phrase we actually learned from Sherry over at the Curtis Mansion. And it really,
she schooled me so quick.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, same sex. And she was like, no, same love. And then, you're going to get people that are like, oh, no, same sex is okay. Like, I'd rather... But, like, honestly, like, when she said that, I was like, oh, my God. Like, it was such a firework in my head. I'm like, that's everybody. It's not just, like, male, female, like, whatever it is. Like,
no, that is. The first time I heard that term was through you, and I really loved it as well. That's a really good point. Well, definitely. And to your point, even though the industry is getting better at being inclusive, there are a few examples that we have to go to. So that's why these really are exploratory conversations, because we don't have a lot of references. And so we are just trying to create this own special space where it does kind of, like Krystle says, check off the boxes. And that's going to be...
You could always mention to every single client, you're like, listen, we do all types of weddings, whatever you got going on. Then we also have the same love package special. And that'll just help get anybody who isn't LGBT friendly out of your life.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, like, we had the conversation about the videographer. It was kind of like, I was like, did you ever have an idea? And you're like, no, I had no idea. And it's like that a lot. Like, I mean, we didn't have an idea either. Where it was very much like, just being, I think, like, I know it's a bad assumption in a way, because there's some people that may be like, Christian based, but Christian based doesn't necessarily mean, that you're not LGBTQ plus friendly, right?
Exactly.
But, like, it kind of raises a little bit of a red flag, like, and not necessarily that you're not going to reach out to that person, but you may be a little bit more conscious of, like, hey, are you guys okay with X, Y, and Z? And then, instead of having that, like, awkward conversation, whatever. But it's still, I think what people, like, vendors need to realize as well, or just to, like, see out of yourself and know that it's actually really hard. Like, I never experienced that type of, even the thought, because I was always in the industry, right? Like, I'm a floral designer, I'm openly gay, Jeremy comes up on my feed all the time. So, like, if you don't want to work with me, it's very clear, like, we're not really friends or whatever. But, like, when we experienced that, like, at one point, I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed. I felt the way I did in high school, and, like, X, Y, and Z when I was whatever. And I was like, Jeremy, please don't tell them that I'm in the industry. I don't want them to ever know that I'm, like, in the industry. I can't even talk. And it was, like, a moment of shame. It was a moment of sadness. And, like, that was what really, like, triggered my want to help out the LGBTQ plus, like, community. Because, like, it's not just about, because I'm a gay man. because like, you know, like it is what it is. Like doesn't but when you experience that, and I never experienced it, I got engaged with my fiance, everyone was awesome, it was great. Like, you know, we got featured, and when we got featured, it was a big deal because like nobody was getting really featured before. Like, you know, like they had just started, and then all of a sudden, boom, you know, you started seeing like two women, two men, like, and it was incredible. But then experience it and was like, oh my God, we still have so much work to do because in my little bubble, everyone was so accepting and loving. And that's something that, you know, is there a question?
Yeah, well, Michael Cauldron just joined us, and he says,
Yep.
as a Christian minister, I promote love and acceptance of all, and I proudly officiate at all ceremonies. Michael, you're amazing. You know, honestly, that's the kind of thing that we love to hear. It really is our duty in the industry to be inclusive, right, and to celebrate love, because that's why we do what we do, right? Is to be able to be surrounded by it all day, every day. And you know, to your point too, it is really, really important to be having these conversations and to sort of be pioneering it a little bit. There's not that many resources out there. So, you know, just to sort of, you know, wrap things up a little bit, first of all, I haven't seen anybody take a sip in a minute.
I think they ran out. Did you guys
Did
run
you?
out? Oh, no!
Oh, no. I thought we discussed you were going to have 2 bottles.
I know. We should have brought the bottle outside.
Not my. I wasn't in charge of the wine.
Rookie mistake. Rookie mistake. So
We're gonna talk about
we're
this
gonna
after
play
the
catch
call.
up after.
Yeah.
So in summary, from what I'm hearing, right, like the first big thing is don't make assumptions, right? To really go for, you know, that personal connection with people, and the community. So one of the things sort of that was on our list is what LGBTQ blogs and Instas should people be following in order to sort of get more of that kind of inspiration in their feed and in front of them?
Honestly, I think I just looked at same-sex weddings, and then when I found videographers and photographers that I really liked, I would like delve deeper into the videos and look at videos of same-sex weddings. But to be honest, there's really not that much out there. You can look up some hashtags and you can do some Google searches, but I didn't find really that much about it.
No.
And we actually have a wedding website, and we were thinking about converting that into a blog. So I mean, maybe we'll post some resources up, you know, and have those. But it's just really challenging, you know. It's really challenging to find it online. I wish I had a simple answer.
Yeah, I think the Knot within their search engine has like there's an LGBTQ like box you can check. But there are very few vendors listed there actually. So I think some who are inclusive just aren't. I don't know. Did they not check that box? To Krystle's point, it was really difficult to find. And we really, I think there was
I
like
see
a
someone
rainbow
says something there, prideweddings.org. It's true. I did look on prideweddings.org. I did. It didn't really fit into, I guess, like our wedding style.
and there were a few vendors listed. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what it was. I just know it was a little challenging to find stuff that was more, I guess, for me, you know, gender non-binary, if you will. Maybe a little bit easier for just our straight.
So one of my favorites is an Insta profile that's Australian called Mr. Theodore Weddings. Is a all same love magazine, print magazine, if you'll believe it or not. That's still a thing.
Wow.
That's Australian based. That is fairly recent and just launched. I would encourage you to take a look at that if you want sort of like a steady stream of Insta inspiration. But I think as a vendor, you know, it also is an invitation for you to think very carefully about your hashtag game when you're making posts, especially if you're doing posts that are, you know, same love posts. Don't use the same standard block of your hashtags on every single one of your posts, because you want to make sure that an LGBT audience is seeing your posts that concern them, right? So do some hashtag research and make sure that you're tagging your posts appropriately so that, you know, your audience can find you. I can tell you this.
I love the same love that you keep using and that we talked about. I mean, maybe that's a great marketing opportunity for the whole industry, because that would be a great hashtag. Same love weddings.
For
That
sure.
would definitely help me
But I
get a
think you
little more
guys
guidance.
made a really good point. Like, I know that, like, you know, obviously, like, I'm in the community, whatever, but like, just like you were saying, that when you saw the blog that I wrote, that alone was like, this person is LGBTQ plus, you know, I'm gonna feel comfortable. And you don't necessarily, I think, so I actually did a little, like, a talk about this, right? And people were really curious, like, how do I tap into that? Because even me, for a long period of time, even being a gay man, all I did was, you know, bride, groom weddings for like ever.